And once these founders understand the gravity of their ambition and situation, they either show you that they really want it,
or they quit.
or they quit.
สวัสดีค่ะพี่เอม
สวัสดีครับ
Thank you so much for coming on and being one of our first guests.
Yeah, super excited to be here.
So we're here with พี่เอม Amarit Charoenphan นะคะ So for those not in Thailand startup and tech industry, you are pretty much, I think, synonymous with the sector. So you co-founded Hubba, which is Thailand's first co-working space. And along the way, you started businesses, invested in businesses, and mentored founders and startups. What are you doing now?
Well, besides being a new dad,
Congratulations.
Thank you to you as well. I'm actually quite honored to be on both a personal transformation and reinvention journey. What I say that because I found that from running two businesses at the same time and going through the pandemic and having to transition out, exit, I've come to realize there was a lot of things I thought I was, pretty good at, but I realized that I could have been better. I could have been so much more impactful, so much more mindful, and actually through near brushes with bankruptcy, depression, and actually going through, literally and functionally unemployed for a while. I've come out on the other end much more healthier, much more capable, and actually very much attuned with the needs of my daughter, which is to see me be a better dad. And that really just means to be a better human being, whether that's about the way you conduct yourself and build your family as well as you build your business. So I think this journey is actually been a reflection, but one of a lot of work. And I have to say that for a lot of people who struggle through the pandemic, I made the most out of my misery. And I'm proud to say that after 4 years, I find that the pandemic was the ultimate wake-up call. And actually, I'm now much better because of it.
Wow, no, thank you for sharing that. That's really, really good to hear. So I think a lot of entrepreneurs struggled during the pandemic. And then like you, a lot of people worked with the challenges and came out better on the other side. Can you share a bit about how sort of that journey was for you and how much work it took for you to get here?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think a lot of us had to reassess what their real purpose and values are. Because for me, I had a skill. I was doing a lot of events at one point. Every year, I meet 20,000 new people, 200 events.
That's too many.
Way too many. And at some point, you realize, well, you've built this incredible network after a decade. And then all of a sudden, the skills that brought you here no longer were valuable.
It's like a wake-up call.
Yeah, it's like, hosting, building communities, all of a sudden, nobody wants to hear about it. And I had to then spend time and say, well, is it really because these skills are useless? Is it temporarily or, forever? Nobody wants communities and spaces anymore. So my assessment was actually no, but the same skills can be reapplied to many sectors, like the blockchain industry, which has had one of the biggest events in town, and many other new emerging fields. So I said, actually, the skills I have is useful. I just don't know where to apply it to a market and a community that actually is looking for it. And I think to then ask yourself, so why are you still hung up with this, kind of vocation? You call yourself an ecosystem builder. The space and media and conferences and events were all just tools to which we really were trying to do something much bigger, which is to create the startup and co-working movement. But why do we want to do that? Fundamentally, I believe in the potential of every human being. I'm only here today because a ton of people, mentors, investors, friends, supported me. They dragged me through college. Without my friends, I wouldn't graduate. They helped me to get jobs. They helped me to find projects. They invest in companies. They supported me. And I see that, because the ecosystem of the village of all these people supported me, how do I give the same opportunity, rather than build a taller fence, but build a longer table for other people to share the same networks and investors and conferences that I get invited to. Because, it's a shame that if AIM is going to all these incredible experiences and one day he disappears, or he moves out of Thailand, then all this incredible connection network is gone with me. And I feel a sense of responsibility that, to pass on these learnings to the next generation. And I continue to say that actually that is my real vocation, my calling, is to build and actually be one of the steward of the ecosystem. And an ecosystem are a network of entities and companies and people moving toward a common goal. Is not something I own. When people say you're the godfather of the ecosystem, I'm like, no, please stop. Right? Godfathers are the folks that get shot. They're like at the top of the food chain, and they're like the ones that everybody loves to hate. I'm the 13th man. I'm the cheerleader, helping everybody.
You're at every conference, sharing them on, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. I remember that because ever since I started in the industry, you were one of the first people I met and I recognized. And you've really harbored the sense of community. And we talked a bit about that just now, right? What is your view on Thailand's technology and startup community right now? And how has it changed, if at all, in the past decade?
You're probably not going to like this answer, but I have
Watch
to
out.
say, I think we failed. I think in the past 10 years, we set out to do this. Co-working space is ubiquitous. There's probably too many conferences, and there's always news about technology. But we had hoped that through all this effort, some great companies would build. And there are definitely a few cases that we can talk about, right? But I think we had higher hopes. We had hopes that our tech companies would be the tentpole companies, the Mag 7 of our ecosystem.
Go public, have more access.
Yes, or actually sell to the world and get people to use it, so that the income that we now spend on ads and on whatnot is being sent abroad. We should be bringing them home and actually, making a lot of people smarter, and a lot of folks would then have the experience and maybe some capital after these companies go public to then start and spawn many new. So I think in that regard, we all dreamed of unicorns. We dress up as unicorns, and I think we talk about it, but I think we did not achieve this goal. And there's a lot of reasons why.
I think we've talked about this quite a bit, right? And I completely agree. There's a lot of published reports that came out this year that talk about, Thailand has potential. We have an incredibly sort of savvy consumer base, young, we're very mobile first. Our payment is completely modernized. But for some reason, our startups and our tech scenes, we haven't managed to evolve from a very localized solution point. Why do you think that is? Is it a market problem, tech problem, or funding gap, or is it all of the above?
I think it's the case of that we have a little bit of everything. It's like all these ingredients in the kitchen, but nobody can make a great dish.
Good ingredients.
Exactly,
Right.
but it doesn't work well together. And I think a lot of reports have already covered the points, right? And now it's really the will to fix it. We know early stage funding, actually funding across all stages is problematic. We also know that a lot of our companies, by default, having worked with everybody who's from a nobody to somebody in Thailand for the past 15 years, they struggle just to try to win Thailand or be recognized and be used here. By the time they get through all the hurdles, unfortunately, the funding, when there's not a lot of liquidity or a lot of support, they then have to spend a lot of time to prove a lot of things. But long story short, a lot of folks go from having dreams of building the next unicorn or a tech company that people would use globally, and over time they become an SME. They'll probably list on the Thai Stock Exchange. They'll probably make a good living, turnover. I've seen some software development companies in Thailand, they'll make $30 million a year, pretty good.
Very good.
But maybe very little or no growth, right? And then anything down to, a couple of million bahts. And unfortunately, without the capital, you're not going to expand abroad because you're barely, struggling to stay alive when everybody is trying to come to. So here's a fun fact. I met a global VC who's been investing across Southeast Asia for the past 15 years, started same time I did. And he said all of his investment in Thailand didn't pan out. The ones that did were companies from abroad that were coming into the Thai market. So they can claim that they're Thai a bit.
I see.
And then that goes to show that, the investors, after waiting on the Thai market potential for so long, have then moved on to look at, India, Vietnam, Indonesia. And we still continue to try to make noise and get people to be attracted. But I think at some point, all the research is on the wall, and we all just got to come together and say, so what are we actually going to do about it? But, on a lot of things that we need to do, there's a lot of work. And it cannot be just done by, one government agency, one group of people, but a Team Thailand effort. And I think that's probably one of our Achilles heel. Like, how do we actually work together as a common team, common goal? And it's usually hard if all of us, even other entrepreneur support organizations, other event organizers, are also struggling. And everybody's fighting internally just to stay afloat, right? Yeah. But in order to think ambitious, think bigger, that the pie is increasing, we need to support those people that support other entrepreneurs to say, well, it's not about, if I don't win this budget, somebody else would. It's like, okay, well, there's a lot of projects to go around. There's a lot of work, actually. But, how can we actually work together and actually, add value in a different way? And I think that's something that needs to be nurtured, how every important stakeholder needs to feel more grounded in the sense that, we're actually all wanting the same thing. But why do we feel sometimes that they need to be competitive? At some point, some of the best founders I met in Thailand, I said, the Thai tech ecosystem to him feels a bit toxic.
Oh.
He's told me over dinner, he said, he's struggled to fundraise. There's a lot of drama. There's a lot of issues between different teams, investor groups. And I really hope that over time there's some, reckoning. So they say like, okay, we've done everything by the book. We have a little bit of everything, but we're not getting the outcome that we want.
We're still waiting for that perfect dish.
Yeah, and then so what's wrong, right? And I think we all feel it, we all know it, we all talk about it in our small circles. But I think that group of people or that bunch of organizations step and say, okay, this is a real problem.
The way to go.
Yeah, we have not seen that kind of united leadership. In a very long time.
And as an ecosystem builder, and you've been in the industry for, I think, since it started, right? Where do you find the motivation to sort of keep growing even with all these macro challenges? Do you ever wake up one day and just like, I'm just going to retire and chill now?
Yeah. Well, I've been through like hell and back multiple times. Yeah. And I still believe that looking at myself, even founders who've failed, especially in Silicon Valley, they usually get a second, third, fourth chance because they've learned something. They're not going to make the same mistakes. It's harder in Thailand, but I think the culture is shifting. And for the few people that believe in innate human goodness and potential, you can say like, okay, well, so now that you've done it, things didn't work out, so how would you do things differently next time? What would you build next, right? And there are founders I continue to support. That company went kaputs, but I said, anything you do next, count me in. I'll back you because I love how you work, love your ideas, I love your team, but certain things were outside your control, right? Maybe it was a crazy cap table and some challenging investors. Yeah. Maybe there's the market, the travel industry collapsing before his eyes, or sometimes you just see people who are not of the typical background. Now, I love to back founders who come from right now Nakhon Si Thammarat, Chiang Mai. A lot of people who are no longer within this kind of usual tech bubble, and they're not getting all the opportunities. And I feel
not getting the press, the publicity.
Exactly, but they're heads down, working, building, and they have the kind of work ethic. I said, you at 23 would be way more successful than I would be because, you have customers, you built a company, real builders, which is heads and faces in front of laptops all day, either coding or talking to customers, selling, getting
really
feedback.
Understanding that product, right?
And when you meet some of those young folks who are still giving it a go, and you're like, okay, I respect that. It's not just hustle culture. It's not just pitching, not just trying to raise money or getting a lot of PR, but actually solving a problem, a really hard one through technology, new solutions, ideas for massive scale, massive impact. And I think that's one thing that I make it now like a very important criteria to get excited when you say about so what's the bar, what keeps you motivated? I literally have to ask the founder, so are you doing this for a lifestyle business or you really want to change the world? And then usually they say okay, I want to be a unicorn. I want to. So prove it to me. So what are you gonna do? What would it take? Work to me backwards. How could you make $100 million annually in sales? How could hundreds of thousands of people paying you tens or hundreds of dollars a month actually use your product, right? And once these founders understand the gravity of their ambition and situation, they either show you that they really want it,
or they quit.
Or they kind of okay, I'm gonna go do my other thing, and I think this is a big issue in Thailand, which is there's a ton of distraction, which is great. It's what makes Thailand a perfect place to tourist, and it's also you really need to be focused because a great investor once told me entrepreneurship building is lonely. A lot of people will not understand you, they'll ignore you, they think you're crazy until it's done. Right? And then a lot of folks that I know, Thailand being a very social place, we're judged, we're compared, we want to be hanging out in the right groups.
We're sociable.
Exactly, which is great, for tourism, but then it's a ton of pressure to be both misunderstood, ignored on the sidelines and saying, I'm working on something. It's going to take me 10 years.
Going to be out of the scene for a bit.
But I've got to work on this thing, I'll show up in the scene a little bit. Versus for a lot of folks that are in the scene. And I think that's a duality. It's really all about where you spend your time. I think, if you can just see the founders that are exciting, they're aim, every day, these are things we're going to do, we're moving really fast, and they're spending the time in the right place versus, we can go all day about, all the fun activities.
We have in Bangkok.
I joke one time, I wish, my career was like a global DJ, like a Paris Hilton. If I get paid to attend all the conferences that are happening all over the world, I'd be a billionaire by now. It would be a great career gig, but, that's...
You have a different path.
Nobody's paid me yet, so
maybe after this. And so as you said, your work in the community, you're very embedded and you're extremely well connected, and you're working with entrepreneurs even outside of the Bangkok bubble right now. What would you say is the sort of common factor? If someone was listening to this episode and they're thinking, I'd really love to start my own business, my own startup, I have a solution to what I think is an addressable problem, what would be your top maybe 2 advice that you would give them before they even fundraise? Okay, great.
Thought a lot about this. So my number 1 advice is to be very selective on where you get advice. I might sound like a very smart guy, articulate. There's a ton of content out there. All right. If you wanted to build a company, you can go to Y Combinator Startup School. There's so many resources.
Just on the website?
Yeah. And Techstars has a bunch. Every every great fund have great blogs.
Okay.
Adapt that to the Thai context. Don't take everything for face value. But the issue is there's so many terrible advice out there.
And dressed up as good advice. Right?
Yes. And I think that ability to sort through is very important because somebody told me, a lot of great investors told me, hey, build your co-working space. Here's the WeWork pitch deck. Please copy it. Go open 15 branch, make $15 million a year. I will fund you, right?
Oh my God.
While I was naive and not very smart, I took this is my North Star. I got to keep running, keep expanding. At Bombs on Seed, we got to get bigger. But I don't have SoftBank to back me. And I didn't have, I wasn't in New York. I was in Bangkok. And all those things that when you just look and try to compare, it's like, it worked in the US, must work in Thailand.
It's so not true.
So not
right?
true,
So
right?
not true.
Exactly. And then I think even a lot of times, mentors and advisors need training to figure out how to give good advice.
Yeah, so you have to not only launch a good startup, you have to find the suitable mentor.
Yes, exactly.
That's hard though.
Yeah, and I curate these incredible human beings, and it's 15 years, and I've worked with a few. Some has backed me.
Right.
Some we work with on different projects. Some are subject matter experts.
Yeah.
And there's a stable of these people I hang out with, and they get the priority of my time because in order to be better, you have to hang out with folks who are better than you, and so I seek out great mentors and figure out a way how to. They're also very busy people, but how do we align our goals? Maybe they wanted to build something. They have projects. They have their own dreams, right?
Yeah.
And they always, great people have energy and a willingness always to mentor and share for the right people. And how are you the right mentee for them, right? And
how do you find them though? If you're not say you're in Chiang Mai, right?
Yeah.
Isolated from the Bangkok startup scene,
Yes.
where do you go?
LinkedIn. Literally, that's how my
Really?
Chiang Mai
Okay.
team. I never met him in person. And
LinkedIn.
I think I added him first because it was an interesting project. And then
Okay.
he just pinged me like, hey,
Really?
we're looking to form an advisory board. Can you come? So I think if you don't ask, you don't get. Like
That's true.
Just like this
I messaged
podcast.
you on LinkedIn too. Actually.
Exactly, right? So
Yeah.
that's another great advice, which is all
Okay.
of the folks that I met, and I'm guilty of this. One bad advice I get, you got to go to conferences, you got to go networking, get on
It's
stage.
just too much sometimes. It's just like,
You should do it sometimes.
Okay.
Yeah, but when you have something important to say and there's
Okay.
some progress, right? If you do
Okay.
it all the time, then
Becomes like a full-time job.
international VCs actually look at your LinkedIn and your posts, and they say, hey, I see these founders. They're not actually working.
Yeah.
They're attending way too many conferences.
So
Hey, what's going
LinkedIn
on?
is actually like it's the Facebook of the new generation. People use it to stalk future employees, right?
All the
and then
time,
see
yeah.
your activities, see your thought process.
Yeah.
So you're actually saying that if someone's listening to this right now and they have a great idea, don't be afraid to reach out to people on LinkedIn.
Of course,
Right.
and
The
people
worst you
who
can say is no.
no, not now,
Yeah.
right? And if you figure out a compelling message, you always get like an interesting response. Now the issue is Thai people don't really use it, and
I think more and more. are
More and
starting
more,
to, right?
exactly.
More and more, yeah.
that's good. Now but at the same time, sometimes people are like, is this a scam? Like,
Yeah.
is this a cold email message? I'm a guy who looked at everything. I don't click on everything, just to make sure, but a lot of golden nuggets, a lot of opportunities going to Bhutan, going to all these incredible conferences, all came from cold emails.
Really?
Yeah, exactly. So I think the key thing is you need to know when and when not to go,
Yeah.
and use the majority of your time, because other people are saying, so, what are you doing this week? What are you doing this month, this quarter? You said you had this goal, right? I hear it all the time. These annual shareholder meeting of startups, there's all these lofty goals at the beginning of the year, and then there's no more meetings.
Yeah.
The next meetings are we didn't achieve any goal, but what happened in all those months
Yeah.
before the next meeting,
Yeah.
right? You can't just
Have to keep
update.
yourself accountable to these like
Yeah.
goals and progress, right?
And the startups know this because it's part of this concept. The second advice is literally go and ask ChatGPT about how to be like an investable founder, because that's what investors are looking for. It's not just about like you ticking a bunch of boxes, right? It's you have a great team, you've got a pitch deck, you got, some people, they would all say like, okay, we're building this data room, with putting everything in there, but the moment you take the founder to show, it's like, do the investors feel like this person know what they're talking about, have built something, are demonstrating momentum, are demonstrating the ability?
Because most of the time, especially with early stage funding, it's mainly about backing the founder, right? And that, whatever idea they have, but it's mainly founder focused.
Yeah, but founders cannot just rely, I used to work in this company and that company. There is a component of the build, right? You can't outsource everything. You can't wait for, unless I have the money, I'm going to build something. And this is where my students, so I teach at this university, Harbor Space.
Okay.
And my students humble me.
Yeah. Really?
Because they use AI for everything. So I teach high-tech entrepreneurship. In the past, it'll take, a couple of months for people to launch a company, write a copy, write a website. Yeah. And they destroy this class. They say like, Aim, you're teaching all these old skills, if we just throw this pitch deck and all this info and we built the deck, we built the software, now we built the logo.
Ready to go to market.
Yeah, and then they go on the market and then go on LinkedIn and they literally, you can start to use AI and bots to find customers and leads. So at some point I'm like, wow, actually you could start to run companies with very little staff or almost like no staff. So
start lean, right? And use just the right tools, learn how to engage with new technologies and new tools.
And I think that resourcefulness is part of investability. It's part of entrepreneurship. How do you do with no resource, right? And I feel like we have too many founders who say, unless I have the team, I have the money, all these things need to come together, then I can launch. But all these young people are proving otherwise. They say, well, you know what? That's how you did it in the past. Now all I need is all these like different tools, and those tools build my prototype for me.
But I'm sure you're able to provide a lot of value in teaching soft skills. I feel like that's where the focus should also be. Everyone, I think in Thailand, there's a lot of hype goes around, right? So this year is AI, so everyone wants to jump on the bandwagon. AI do integrate some sort of AI capability, but what you don't realize or prioritize necessarily is that soft skills are very durable. And they're still the same skills that you've honed to experience, 10 years. So what are the sort of young generation getting excited about then in your class? What kind of problems, solutions?
Yeah, there's a lot, right? This is my personal view, is that I think, if you talk about building software as a service or a lot of the low-hanging fruit, the e-commerce platforms and tools, you're seeing that a lot of the low-hanging fruit opportunities have been kind of taken up by larger enterprises, and even with like we have a lot of people trying to build in MarTech, right? A lot of AI tools, chatbot, whatnot, and then you start to also see a lot of large companies starting to buy companies in the space, are looking for acquisition, which is good. But also at the same time, you kind of know that they're also going to move into this new space, right? It's evident when, Salesforce, Microsoft, AWS, Google, everybody talks about AI and agents and how these agents will do customer service, KYC. They'll, check the legal, check the copy, check the blah, blah, blah. And you're starting to see like, okay, do we plug into one of these platforms, or do we do something in a sector that, like AI 40 years ago, it wasn't hot, and now it is. So there's a couple of my students, they're like, I'm interested in space tech.
Space tech?
Yes, I'm interested.
In Thailand?
Yeah, I'm interested in longevity, because there's a lot of old people and they will need new services for as they become sick, old, or end of life, right? So there's all these new emerging like billion-dollar opportunities that are often overlooked.
Yeah.
And also they require, a lot of deep R&D, some technical challenges. It's not a walk in the park. It's not like, okay, let's go and outsource to some OEM to slap a brand on this and then just
This
think
is
about
proper tech.
it is proper tech, right? And if you appreciate that, then you realize actually, as one chapter closes, each sector has a cycle, right? There was a fintech boom, there was a blockchain boom, now it's back. And a lot of people say, well, there's an AI boom, but I'm the Thailand advisor for this fund called Gen AI Fund. So through the fund, we did a report looking at about 700 Gen AI companies across Southeast Asia, and Thailand's one is highly underrepresented, but two, most of it is still applications. Basically, maybe there was an app in the past that was Web 2, and they say, okay, let's add AI into it. Let's build on top. Yeah. And try to solve some.
Okay.
Or maybe it's like a Thai language thing, which is it's okay. I think it's a start, but we're also looking at, at the same time, if it's just that to solve problems for Thai corporates or Thai consumers, then it might not be the kind of companies that I hope to invest. And like I said, going back to investability, if angel investors aren't backing it, a lot of international VCs, they will say, well, we've done a lot of deals in Thailand. It didn't pan out. AIM. Can you tell me what's a good company, right? And unless I invest in and I feel like, okay, this is worth putting my name on it, referring, and then bringing maybe some other local angels and corporates into it, then these international VCs will say, it's okay, we don't understand enough about the Thai market. We can't see the potential. Is this team really going places?
Because there's so much opportunity elsewhere. I mean, just Vietnam, Indonesia, we don't even have to look to the West, right? Just in terms of Southeast Asian companies, there's so much going on.
Yeah. Or foreigners coming to live here, right? After this conference, DevCon, so many people said they're moving to Thailand. They're going to build here. They're going to live here.
Because it's so nice to live here.
Exactly. But they're also thinking, let's use this market to launch something and tap into the Thai consumers.
Okay.
So while we are the market for them, we are also, not allowing those ideas to be built locally. We need to support more of our local builders.
When you say, that's interesting, supporting local builders, do you think there are more that corporates or education centers or government that more they could be doing to sort of help foster the technology education? Because like you say, when we're throwing around words like deep tech and space and AI, these things require like very, very deep technology expertise, things that I definitely cannot do, or you have to go to school for them, get proper degrees. Engineering have to be very strong at math. Thai kids are really good at math. But what's that gap? I mean, why are sort of students not getting the exposure?
Yeah, I think that's
right?
like the $1 billion question. Exactly. Because everybody see the stats, all these degrees are valued.
Computer science.
Exactly. And I think it's really a culture problem, right? Fundamentally, it's what does a society and group of people, parents, teachers, students focus on. If the parents, are not in the sector and don't see the potential, and the teachers don't know anything about tech, and the kids have very little exposure,
it's a structural problem.
It is.
Right?
It is.
Just like household debt.
Yeah, we need a separate podcast for education.
Oh my God, that's true.
Exactly. But that being said, I do have a case for that, which is we're experimenting in small ways where we can take, at Harbor Space, Olympiads and, some of the great smartest kids from wherever we can find them. My students come from Nigeria, Kenya, Morocco, Myanmar, all the
Do you teach
Central
Thai
Asia.
kids as well?
And some Thai kids, right? And
online?
It's actually in person. At UTCC. And the key thing is we want to bring all these smart kids together and they learn in a different way. Experiential learning in 3-week cycles, 15 days where they have modules, so they
Okay.
focus in one class at a time. And through my class, they need to launch a business and not just ideate a business.
Can I sign up? I want to
Yeah, love
enroll
to.
too.
Now we only have 70 students.
Okay.
Hopefully we get to 700.
Wow.
But many of these experiments should be happening everywhere, and this is a mini,
incubated, right?
a university inside
Yeah.
a
How
bigger.
old are the other students on average?
So we have bachelors and masters.
Okay.
Right?
Oh, so
Right, and then through my other project, at Verso International School, we start to bring, education content for adults, which is like something as simple as a hackathon, and now we teach 13 to 18-year-olds, and
That's great.
they perform much better than I did when in my first hackathon, because now they have AI. And
Yeah, kids are really smart these days,
Exactly.
right? So I think even when your daughter turns 5, maybe she'll learn how to code.
I've got the little book about
A little book
quantum.
about coding.
Yeah.
I saw that book.
Exactly, blockchain for
Yeah.
babies. So I think we definitely need to be running more experiments on the
Even
education.
at a small scale, right?
Exactly,
Okay.
because I can only do so much in a couple of schools,
True.
and I have still been going to new universities where educators still tell me like, don't touch the curriculum. Like it's too much work,
Yeah.
it's too many
Don't know where to
issues, don't
start.
know where to start, and they still feel like, if they change it, a lot of professors will not know how to adapt to it. Like
Yeah.
we're basically holding back the quality of our education and transformation because
Of the system.
of the system.
Your Thai kids are really smart.
Yeah, and that's why
Eager
they
to
can learn online.
Yeah.
I did my EMBA with a university called Quantic. We did that in 12 months,
Okay.
all online during the pandemic. Easy peasy. And they've been able to innovate, like come up with new ideas how to make online degrees more fun, more engaging, and cost less, right? So the whole time I was learning this degree, it was like 500 of my classmates were on Slack, we were chatting, we were doing homework, and then everything was able to be done, graded, quizzed, tested, all on your mobile phone. You didn't need to watch a single
Wow.
video. There's a couple of videos, there's things to read, but it was built so seamlessly that if you were on your train, if you were out and about,
On the treadmill.
yeah, exactly. I did some on my treadmill, and like in 5 minutes you can complete a course.
Wow.
So we need more of these experiments for sure. I think structurally that's definitely the end goal, to fix it at the source.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, we got to do and show success case and proof points. Yeah.
And also, I think just more exposure into these programs, right? Because a lot of people probably don't know that these tools and courses are accessible.
Yes.
And some are probably affordable too. And even if they're not, there should be sort of grants and scholarships to help, aspiring kids to reach these programs.
Yes.
I think that's the key to creating a stronger community.
Yeah. And there's a stat that some of my friends at the World Economic Forum shared, and they're saying that of all the countries across Southeast Asia, like Thailand, number of students that will study abroad is so small compared to Vietnam by like a mile. And the hunger for education and learning and self-improvement is evident. I advise a Vietnamese company this year, and folks work incredibly long hours.
Yeah, they're
very
really
modern.
hungry, very
They
different.
are very hungry. They're doing degrees on the weekends.
Wow.
Their English is impeccable, and they are coming to Thailand to expand the business here. When was the
And
last
putting
time?
us out of business.
Exactly. When was the last time Thai people tried to go to Vietnam and take a crack at it? And that energy, that fire, I think we've as a country we've been through a lot.
Yeah.
And I think now it's
Still
really
going through a lot.
it's kind of really kind of building ourselves back up and say, okay, well, where is that far? And sometimes I know it's hard because we feel like you look everywhere and like I don't feel supported here. I've got great ideas. I can't find investor. It takes a very long time to talk to corporates, and the government grants. Compared to Dubai or Saudi Arabia.
Only last year a few months, right?
Yeah, literally maybe like one person's salary half a month or something. Like it's minuscule, And I think that's probably one of the big hacks that I'm focused on is actually how to get corporates working better with startups in Thailand. Because that's really been everybody says it, right? Like the startups complain a lot and they say like, the corporates don't understand us and blah, blah, blah. At the same time, a lot
Corporates
of
are the biggest supporters of startups.
And I talk to all of them.
It's a chicken and egg problem.
Exactly. And they say, well, we can't find a great founder we want to back. You know, there were so many issues working with startups. We invested, nothing happened. These issues happen. So there's tension and trauma on both sides.
But they need each other, I think.
Exactly.
Right?
Oh, yeah. And, at one side, you have folks with the money, distribution, all the resources. But a lot of them have tried to build innovation internally, and things aren't going anywhere fast.
In your view, then, what is the best way that a startup could work with a Thai corporate? If there is one.
Yeah, there is. So we're seeing great success case at Innovera. So I work right now with a corporate innovation advisory as well as an innovation solutions company. So actually we built this platform for large corporates to understand innovation across the world, across many data sets, LinkedIn, Crunchbase, whatever, to see what they can invest, buy, JV, do M&A. Now, on the other hand, we do run programs to support these corporations so that they can figure out what are their strategies. Now, one of the things that startups don't understand most of the time is they probably never read the annual report of any of the corporates that they're going to go pitch, right? Or at least catch up on the news.
Yeah.
It's what are the executives up to? What are some of their challenges and pain points, right? Too many times they're just pitching, they're not listening. And these corporates have priorities and they have budgets and they have a vision and a goal,
and they have a business to run, right?
And that's most of the times they cannot deviate too much because while having to keep the lights on, they're trying to come up with these new initiatives, right? Yeah. So from that strategy, as we advise, large global Fortune 500 companies like Bree Grimm and True, we've come to realize that, okay, the people in these large organizations are really smart. They've seen it all. They've done work with startups. Yeah. They had their, highs and lows. They're not stupid. Yeah. And furthermore, the managers and senior executives after them aren't. Yeah. They're very motivated to come. Yeah. So we run internal accelerator programs, 10 weeks, 10 ideas to support them to take some of their big initiatives and actually get those going. Now, the issue is that obviously those executives are very busy. They have a lot of problems that they need to solve. So, it's quite
takes time.
An investment for them to even take 10 weeks off. They can build the business case and the idea. But after that, a lot of times they're like, we don't have the AI engineers, data scientists. We don't have all these, experts.
To implement.
Exactly. So that's where great startups can come in, which is like, okay, well, some of these ideas, I've already built it. Why don't you buy from me and use it first? Okay. Or, hey, I'm building this startup, exactly what you want to build. I'll save you a bunch of time. Just buy me out and I'll join you, right? Or
like absorb them into the company.
Or like let's do a POC together. Yeah. I'm working on this thing. Yeah. You don't have the team or resources. Yeah. You can be my first customer.
So shouldn't this already be happening in the industry, or is it not happening as much as it should?
I think, this is like, men are from Mars, women are from Venus kind of thing. So folks are kind of on different side. Yeah. All the founders are hanging out in one bubble, and the corporate folks are hanging out and trading war stories. And
in another bubble.
Yeah, and I think
they need to meet at a conference.
They can. Now, the issue is oftentimes these insights are not shared publicly, right? No corporate goes around and telling you, here's a long list of laundry list, and these are all the ways we're failing. Yeah. And at the same time, startups is like, so I don't know anybody in these corporates, So like,
who do I reach? They're not reachable on LinkedIn.
Yeah, exactly. And I think there are some ways, like whether it's like ecosystem builders like myself or organization, like they call it ESOs, entrepreneur support organizations, like Innovera, right? So we can start to bring in founders. We can start to bring in people and say, okay, for this project, you should talk to this person, right? And then obviously, governments are supposed to be doing this, and there's not just me in the ecosystem, not just in Novera, but how do we have many aims?
Yeah.
Many
How do you
Innoveras.
bring the community together?
Right. Yeah. And I think the pie is massive. And Innovera has 9 Fortune 500 companies across the world, and we are slammed. We have so much work. We can keep growing, but there are hundreds and thousands more. Of
And
these
probably
companies.
a lot of corporates that are not in that network too, like a lot of corporates
course.
in Thailand probably.
Yeah. It's
right?
so many. And then I think the key fundamental thing is that a lot of folks like me usually after cheerleading for so long get burnt out and say, I've done all this great work and now my karma bank is full of deposit, but my bank account is empty because usually these jobs are not, on the fast career path to a C-suite anytime soon, right? Only in the Valley, there's like chief ecosystem officer or a chief vibes officer.
Yeah. Chief Vibes Officer.
Exactly.
I love it.
I love that. I would love that job title.
I would love that job too.
Right. Now, in summary, I'd just say like these individuals that are doing the work, connecting, facilitating, are the glue to making this ecosystem work, bridging the trust, making the introduction, taking folks to meet investors, creating platforms, events, activities, all of them very important, very useful. But then after a while, they're like, okay, I'm done. I'm retiring.
Gonna go back to my own thing.
Yeah, or work on some because this I don't make money.
That's why you're doing 100 things at the same time.
Well, I'm lucky. When I said I'd spent 4 years figuring out how to do what I love, is I have things that keep the lights on, keep my family happy, and then I get to do my 110% project and add onto a long list of things that I have to be involved in, supporting 40 investments, being a president of the New Zealand Thai Chamber of Commerce.
Oh my gosh.
And
where do you find time to relax?
AI, maybe AI to help. But on all this portfolio leads to the same thing. And I just wanted to say that like mad shout out to all the folks that were behind the scenes, behind the success. A lot of them are unsung heroes. They help people raise money to become unicorns, but had no equity, no skin in the game. They were there when things were rough, and mediating trauma, crisis, so many issues, but oftentimes kind of get overlooked when they all have their own trauma.
Yeah.
And I think more of these people need to feel like that whatever they're doing, it's actually not just a craft or a conviction, but actually it can be a career, right? I think community building, ecosystem development already is in the US, and there will be degrees, there will be programs in the future. But right now it just feels like this is kind of a, touchy-feely, good vibes kind of person.
Chief vibe officer.
Yeah, it's just nice extrovert. He or she is so friendly. But oftentimes you're just like, okay, well, thank you and goodbye.
Yeah. No, but that's really interesting because I feel like actually I think you've been in the industry for over a decade. It always goes back to community, right? Even when you started Hubba, when no one really knew, what the idea of co-working spaces was. You start the space where everyone has similar shared goals and vision, and 10 years on, you're still kind of doing the same thing, but in a very different format.
Yeah.
Right? And I think that's it. It means, you can't get out of this seat now. You're stuck.
At close to 40, you realize what you're good at.
Right.
And it's
working.
Yeah, it's your calling.
It's inspiring to see, new generation of entrepreneurs, especially ones that are not everywhere in the press.
Yeah.
And I think that's very rewarding.
Exactly. And I feel like for anybody who ever feels like, Thai founders, a lot of times these corporate and VCs are like, I don't think this startup thing is a real thing. We've invested, nothing happened. It's like, give these folks a chance. It might not be this past 10 years, but the next 10 years will be a different set of,
you get there
entrepreneurs, early. Right? And they have new ideas, new tools, but they continue to need the same amount of support. And because other even are doing more, right? And if you believe that for all these people that we now call, heroes, whether they're business heroes, they got here, by some luck, but a lot of times there's a whole host of things that happen to them that had to be right for them to actually now for them to become the tycoons and the leaders of business. So if those folks can recall their past and how they got, to the top, and I hope that they will continue to pass it on to the next generation, because those are the folks who will actually go out and fix a lot of the problems that we have in Thailand.
I'm excited to see that, and keep going. So going a bit far in the future, not too far, what are the key trends that you're looking forward to in 2025? Tech trends, investment trends.
I see. Well, I think there's a lot of to be said about, now that the election is over, there's going to be a lot of changes in how climate tech will be viewed. But I think if people think like, oh, because of President Trump, there's going to be less investment, my view is actually, to double down on it, because I believe that more corporations and other, governments will actually pick up the slack and say, okay, well, if the U.S. is not going to lead this, we need to pick up, because I think we can all agree that, there's definitely something wrong with the climate in the world today, whether you're in whichever political spectrum. The moment a typhoon hits your house, you're going to think differently.
Once it's a relatable problem, right?
Exactly.
And we're seeing more extreme weather patterns in Thailand. I mean, this year alone, not too long ago, Chiang Mai flooding.
Yeah,
Chiang Rai.
exactly.
So it's all becoming very ใกล้ตัว
Yes.
Right. So but these problems are quite difficult to solve when you're not at the government level.
For sure.
Right.
Yeah, but I think a lot of companies now, they have a lot of EU rules that they need to comply with. So they've got to do a lot of carbon accounting and also all sorts of offsets. And a lot of companies look at carbon credits. I think it's still very exciting, but at the same time, you've got players from all over the world in the Thai market. You've got some of the local ones that are trying to get up to a regional level.
Yeah.
And where do we support now? Is this another thing that we're going to be buying credits from outside of Thailand?
Yeah.
Or, are we going to support the local players, or is the government going to try to do it themselves? And I think that's something, we got to keep an eye on. Now, the other thing is, whenever there's a sector that is emerging, most people will say like, okay, well, there's no money to be made in the next 1 or 2 years. So this is where Thailand is very different from Singapore.
Right.
Right. Because Singaporean government has 20-year plans. They have a vision and they stick to it.
Yeah.
Right? And we will, we'll try to survive the next year.
The next election.
Exact election. So what are things that will be very exciting in the next 20 years? So we kind of all know that there's a lot of interest in blockchain and real world use case. When I was in Bhutan, they're starting, not just to mine. His Majesty King Jigme had now close to $1 billion worth of Bitcoin, but they're saying so what can we do with all this Bitcoin wealth, right? Can we use the blockchain technology for digital identity? Right. I think in Thailand we had some of these ideas, but we didn't get a chance to launch them. That being said, even at DEF CON, you started to see like, okay, let's have a little sandbox. So the conference participants can use this app to use their stable coins to buy things just for this summit. Now, while going from an experiment, how can we position ourselves to be a forefront of that economy? Because that's naturally gravitating all these builders to Thailand. So a lot of great projects to be looked at. I'm seeing a couple of deals every day, but I think, the biggest show in town came and went, and I think there was very little engagement from a lot of other important stakeholders.
Right.
The other one I'd say, looking very far out, is going back to space, going back to longevity. These are some of the in Singapore, they have the thing called Deep Tech Nexus. It includes blockchain, AI, health, and well-being, and then obviously things like future of food. All these things that will be important to mankind in the next 30 years because of climate change.
Yeah.
And these are evergreen industries that founders can place their bets, right? And they will, in time be rewarded. Longevity, when you do an insurance plan today, they ask you, would you want it to be for 85 years or 99, right? So the view with technology is you're already going to live longer, but how much of that is bedridden with chronic disease, right?
And how much of that is like good quality?
Yeah, and then all this idea around preventative medicine, blue zones, how do you be, healthy and extending that quality of life? So all those things are things people pay for immensely. And then lastly is a new dad, and also to all the pet parents out there, folks will pay any amount.
Exactly.
For, things that, make their pets healthier, improve their kids' ability, right? My daughter is a dragon year, so she's going to be a very competitive set.
Exactly, mine too.
Exactly, right? And then now it's like, okay, do we need to get a DNA test? And what is she good at, right? So all these new wonderful products.
Yeah.
And like I said, the opportunities are endless.